In the previous video, I explained that you can use the ping command to confirm that DNS name resolution is working on your network. Every once in a while, though, you might find that you have trouble resolving a particular computer's name, even though everything seems to be correct. Your computer is configured to use the right DNS server. The computer whose name you're trying to resolve is using the same DNS server. Everything appears to be correct, and yet name resolution isn't working. So why might that be? Well, it all comes down to something called the DNS resolver cache. Let me explain. Imagine what would happen if every time your computer needed to talk to another computer on your network, it had to contact a DNS server first and resolve that computer's name, even if it had just talked to that computer a moment ago. Well, that type of activity would put a huge load on your DNS server, and it would also slow down every system on your network, just because of all the extra overhead associated with contacting the DNS server over every little thing. So thankfully, that's not the way that Windows works. When you resolve a computer name, that resolved name is written to something called the DNS resolver cache, so that the next time you have to communicate with that computer, Windows doesn't have to perform yet another DNS name resolution. Instead, it can just look to the cache and find the entry for that computer and do the name resolution that way. Now, the reason why that can sometimes lead to problems is because imagine what would happen if a computer on your network's IP address changed. So if the IP address changes, the DNS record for that computer on the DNS server will also change to reflect the new IP address. But if a computer that's trying to communicate with that machine has that machine's former name and IP address in its DNS resolver cache, then it will resolve the computer name to the wrong IP address. So in a situation like that, where you're trying to communicate with a computer on your network and DNS name resolution just isn't working and you suspect that maybe that machine's IP address has changed, what you need to do is flush the DNS resolver cache, and this is something that's really simple to do. So let's take a look at how to do that. I'm going to click on the Start button, and then from there I'm going to go to All Apps. I'll go to the W section. I'll expand Windows System, and we need elevated permissions for this. So I'm going to right-click on the command prompt, and I'll go to More and then Run as Administrator. And this is going to open an elevated command prompt window when I click Yes. So you can see that we're in a command prompt window, and the word administrator up here indicates that we're in an elevated command prompt window. So we have administrative permissions, and what we need to do is clear out the DNS resolver cache. And the way that we do that is by using the ipconfig command. And if this sounds familiar, it's because the ipconfig command is the command that's used to verify your IP address. If I were to just press enter right now, I would see this machine's IP address. But to clear the DNS resolver cache, what we can do is type ipconfig /flush DNS. And I'll press enter. And I get a message saying that I have successfully flushed the DNS resolver cache. And so what that does is the next time you try to resolve the name of that computer that you're having trouble with, rather than using a cached IP address and fully qualified domain name, Windows is going to be forced to contact the DNS server where it will get the most recent DNS record. Now you don't have to do this every time an IP address changes because entries in the DNS resolver cache are relatively short-lived, so cached entries will eventually expire and be replaced by more current data. So the problem will eventually go away on its own when a computer on your network changes IP addresses. But if you need to fix the problem quickly, this is how you do it.